All right, we are now moving on to round 9 here. The second round of day 2 here. I just defeated Kenshi Samura, so I am on a high. Gotta keep it going. Really would like to see some humans players just for some nice easy wins. Would like to dodge control this round. Didn't quite get there. I am up against 5-column Mizzet. Certainly not a deck that I expected to play against, nor was really hoping to play against. Heliod's biggest struggle is definitely with the control decks, so I kind of expected that I would meet like one control deck during the tournament, most likely, but hopefully not more than that. And I guess it is kind of a blessing that it is this version of control, which I think is better for Heliod, just because it has some inherent inconsistencies. Like, you obviously got the very powerful cards, Nib Mizzet and Territorial Kavu, alongside a bunch of spot removal spells, which is something that the Heliod deck is not really great at fighting through, especially with stuff like Vanishing Verse that can actually kill the Heliod. It's kind of an issue. But yeah, so it's like Vanishing Verses, Lightning Helixes, even some sweepers in the form of Deafening Clarion, Maelstrom Pulse, and a single Fatal Push, single Kolaghan's Command, a single Culling Ritual. But that's it for the interaction, really. Like, there's also some Vault Seizes, right? But there are also some clunky cards. Like, yeah, the Graftica's Cage can shut off my companies, but if I don't draw those, then the Cage is not a dead card. Clothis is basically dead. The Scarab Guard is not going to be very good. So, and this deck is like filled to the brim with a bunch of lands. It has to, because otherwise it doesn't really function with its 5-color mana base. It's really held together by the expressive iterations, but there are also aren't that many 1-mana spells to play alongside an iteration on turn 3. So, all in all, I think I'm happier to see this than another control deck, but still don't expect it to be a good matchup. So let's see how we can roll into this. Oh wait, maybe I should go with the sideboard, but I don't think there's much to say. Like, End of Festivities is like a one-off that I'm not going to spend too much time playing around. It's just that there's going to be more sweepers, basically, is the issue post-board. But otherwise, I'm just going to try and fight it as I would fight any other control deck, trying to rely a lot less on my combo. And because it's very easy for this type of deck to break up the combo, and then Scurry Oak is just a very bad card by itself. So I'm going to board out some Scurry Oaks, and I'm going to focus on threat diversity and trying to just win with my plan B, taking some big Advantage Pridemate type cards, and have Heliod as, and like Ranger Captain and so on, like these solid threats, trying to win with some companies that hit well. So yeah, let's see how it goes. We are against Shotaro Kumazaka. And, alright, I win the die roll, and my hand is, like, perfect. Okay, so if we're gonna be controlled, maybe this is how we do it. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is exactly what I want. And, as expected, my opponent leads on a tap land. And I get to just start growing up this voice. Hopefully I don't lose the Soul Warden, because that is definitely, like, keeping my hand together, as is usually the case with this deck. And there's just another tap land. Okay, well, knowing that there's only one Fatal Push, I feel pretty safe that I can just get in here. Yeah, and there's no interaction. I'm gonna play my Heliod here. Small thing, I shock myself on my turn 3 so that I can, so that I don't like really telegraph the company, but it's a very small thing. It's just sometimes you think about that. It matters more when it's not a card like company that's really telegraphed, but sometimes you have to shock yourself a turn before you would really need to if you're planning to leave up an instant. Alright, this Kolaghan's Command is interesting. I'm glad to not see a Deafening Clarion, but what do I discard here? I think discarding the land might be a little bit too greedy, but on the other hand, I have a lot of really good top decks then. At the end, I come to the conclusion that I don't really need anything other than, I think one company here, just like guaranteeing that I can cast it now is better. Especially in the sense, like, I'm gonna deal a lot of damage now. Because the company will hit probably enough Right Devotion to get Heliod online, and that's huge. Speaking of getting Heliod online though, I just drew a Ranger Captain. And it's very possible that Ranger Captain to go get a Selfless Savior is actually a better line here. Because I get to attack for 8 damage and have like Ranger Captain and Selfless Savior to protect me next turn. So that's really the question here. Do you go for company or do you go for the Ranger Captain? I think I am supposed to go for Ranger Captain here, if I'm being honest. But I have the high roll of company. If I hit Soul Warden and a Scurry Oak, I will just win the game outright right now. And if we think about my opponent's deck, I wonder if there's any really big punishers to go for the other line. I don't actually think so. Because like Culling Ritual as a sweeper doesn't really work. My opponent definitely doesn't have Deafening Clarion, because they would have cast it last turn. And even if they have it now, I still get to, you know, save my Voice of the Blast and then goes Company, which probably should be lethal. So yeah, I actually think the Ranger Captain line is just the best thing here, because otherwise I might risk losing if I brick on my Company and my opponent has a lot of good removal to catch back up here. But you'll see me consider this. I actually don't remember which one I went with. This is one of the rounds where I decided not to watch it beforehand. So I'll be just as surprised as you are to see this. But I can guarantee you that a similar line is working through my head here. It looks like I'm gonna go for the Company actually. Just high rolling. And we got there, Scurry Oak and Soul Warden. Yeah, okay, well, you know. I guess that's what's going on. I guess the other line is a little bit weak to Vanishing Verse, but not by that much. Like if it's Vanishing Verse plus Lightning Helix, then maybe it's not great for me, but it's still fine. Because I can still use the Sulfur Savior to protect against the Vanishing Verse. But anyway, now we're just gonna do this for a little while. Until the Voice of the Blast is large enough to be lethal, which should be about now. So I actually don't know what I'm doing right now and why I'm pausing, but it's pretty neat though to get a turn 4 kill against the control deck. But yeah, casting a single removal spell on turn 3, which is not good enough. Just see how fast that Voice of the Blast grew. And yeah, I mean that is definitely like I think that this deck can do. I think the Ranger Captain line is still better because yeah, even if they have Lightning Helix, Vanishing Verse, I think I'm still in a really good spot. And if I break on that Company, which doesn't happen often because you're really full of creatures, but I could hit like a second Heliod, for instance. Like all my Heliods are not considered hits for my Company. And I can hit, you know, I guess Skyclave Apparition still to provide some devotion, but it's like not unreasonable that I hit like a Trellisera and a Heliod, and that's it. And then I can only put a Trellisera in play, and I don't have enough devotion for my Heliod. And I won't have any life gain triggers, and that's actually like, that could give my opponent the window to come back compared to just going the safe route with Ranger Captain. So yeah, in retrospect, don't think I played that too well. Anyway, the way I've decided to sideboard here, I'm definitely gonna bring in the Giant Killer. There aren't many matchups where you have both Ranger Captain in your deck and Giant Killer has targets, but this is definitely one of them. Another matchup is like against Crackling Drake out of Phoenix, for instance, and like a few other. It's kind of like a fringe scenario, but we decided that just like the upside of having that one sideboard slot that you can two-door up with your 3 main deck cards felt like it was enough of a reason to keep it. Because yeah, there are other matchups where like Giant Killer would have targets, but if you bought out the Ranger Captain, it's just like not very good anyway. But anyway, yeah, I'm boarding in Giant Killer and planning to take out some Scurry Oaks. Also boarding in Gideon Blackblade as just like a great anti-control threat. And you can also board in some Thalias and some Pridemates. Thalia is not great against this deck, but at least it can kind of act like a lightning rod in certain senses. I don't think it's super good here, but it's pretty good against their tap lands in some scenarios. So maybe on the play, I like Thalia, not on the draw. You could also bring in some Ajanis, but since they have Territorial Cargo, which can attack it pretty well, I'm less into Ajani. Decide to cut all my Skyclave Apparitions. Because, yeah, I mean, they do kill the Territorial Cargo, but if they don't draw that card, like, I don't really want to have Skyclaves just muddling up my draw. And you can definitely shave a Soul Warden effect in this matchup. Soul Warden is worse than Noonlight Veteran because they don't have that many creatures themselves. So the fact that this triggers off their creatures doesn't matter too much. Whereas being able to bring back Noonlight Veteran could definitely matter. And since you're not bringing out Ranger Captains, like, because in a lot of matchups you're just boarding out your Ranger Captains, and then you have to keep all 10 1-drops. Because otherwise you're just too low on life gain effects. But since I'm keeping the Ranger Captains, I would always have the option, not always, but whenever I draw this card, I would have the option to find a life gain effect. And yeah, I'm going to shave a little bit on Scurry Oaks. I'm actually unsure how many I need to board out, because once I go off with the combo, my opponent can't actually beat it very easily. I guess they could do stuff like, you know, Calling Ritual, get a bunch of mana, and then Maelstrom Pulse my Scurry Oak. So if I have the combo with like the minimum amount required, then yeah, they can't beat it. But the fact that they also have a ton of removal spells means that yeah, I think I can afford to just have fewer pieces of the combo. And I do think actually a Janice Pridemate is going to be better than Thalia, just because it poses more of a threat and can actually attack through something like an Mizzet or a Territorial Cargo if left unchecked. But these are just some of the thoughts that go into this, and exactly how I'm supposed to sideboard here, I don't know. I haven't playtested the matchup. I haven't really made a sideboard guide, so I don't really know, but that's at least what is going through my mind here. Alright, I just end up submitting like that. Yeah, I think I would bought in another Pridemate and bought out Scurry Oak as well for, I don't know, an Ajani maybe. I guess Ajani's not great on the draw. Alright, well, we have a hand here with, it doesn't have a way to gain life, but Selfless Savior can protect some of my guys, and yeah, maybe this Dahlia actually ends up coming in handy here. We get Thoughtseize though, but I wonder what they'll take, because my hand is like pretty Thoughtseize proof. I have a lot of 2-drops here. They could take the Scurry Oak if they're afraid of the combo. That's definitely like a good reason to keep the Scurry Oak in against control decks, is that it acts as a lightning rod sometimes. But yeah, they just took Thalia here because probably that's going to really disturb their development. And now that's a part of playing the... Oh, Grafdigger's Cage too. Well, that means my companies are shut off, but I drew a Lunak Veteran, so that's actually a really good draw here. And I'm just going to decide to run out one of my 2-drops, and the next turn I can go Lunak Veteran plus Terracera and start to grow things. So they go Lightning Helix here, and I decide to save my Voice of the Blessed, which is probably correct, but it does mean actually that I'm really weak to Calling Ritual and Deafening Clarion. So I wonder if I should have spent a little bit more time just thinking that through. Because using my Selfless Savior here means that like now I play my 1-drop and my Trellisera, everything grows to a 3/3. And then it just Deafening Clarion and I have nothing left. Right? Whereas if I just let my Voice die and I play Veteran and Trellisera. Trellisera is the more important one to keep alive anyway, because Scry is so good. And then if they sweep, I get to decide to keep Trellisera alive. And I would have something survive the sweeper, whereas this other way I don't get to do that. So actually, I think that was a bit greedy, potentially. But also sometimes you just have to take your chances. Seeing Ranger Captain on top though, really happy with that. Gonna be multiple creatures coming into play. I can't go get a Selfless Savior, but... Oh, you see me ready with a good game in case they have a sweeper. Alright, so I lose the Scurry Oak, that's all good. And now they shock again, I'm like, oh no, is this a Deafening Clarion? It is just a Maelstrom Pulse. Alright, so Trellisera is down. That's all good. If we see how this works, if I keep my Selfless Savior alive, there would be a 2 more points of life. But I would just save my Trellisera. I would have a Trellisera in play now instead of the Voice of the Best. Because I would have just gotten to save that. And now I get to go Ranger Captain, and they only have 1 card left, actually, so they must have mulliganed a little bit. I mean, I guess the Grafdigger's Cage and the double Thoughtseize also meant that they quickly ran out of cards. But if I Ranger Captain here, and that's gonna grow the Voice, I can just... The thing I'm most scared of here is that you just slam the Mizzet and stabilize behind that. So I don't think it's worthwhile for me to sacrifice my Ranger Captain on their upkeep. That's something you can sometimes do against these control decks, where like you build a lethal board and then upkeep sacrifice Ranger Captain and then they can't do anything and they die. Especially if they were sitting on a sweeper. But in this case, because I had the 1 Giant Killer in my sideboard, I can actually just go get that. And yeah, it won't be another creature. Like I can't play it as a creature, so it won't grow my Voice, but I have lethal here anyway. And if they play and miss it now, they just die. So I think this just leaves me with the best out here. If they have Lightning Helix, they can't do much here, because if they shoot the Ranger Captain, I'm just gonna sacrifice the Ranger Captain so they don't gain 3 life. And indeed, they just cycle around Tryon. Doesn't really accomplish much, and we got there. So that was a very fast win against the against the 5-color Live Mizzet deck. Don't think I played that optimally, for sure. Just rewatching this, I think I sideboarded a little bit wrong. I think the sacrificing Selfless Savior to save my Voice on turn 3 there was very greedy. There's no reason to take that risk. And I think going for the company was also, again, going for a risk in a spot where I'm actually pretty far ahead. But yeah, anyway, you know, I got really lucky though. I got very good draws. My opponent's draws were... it did not seem very inspiring. They didn't have a Kavu, they didn't have Expressive Iteration. And, you know, I mean, their mana base, you know, they could cast those spells, but they came in tapped and dealt them damage and so on, which is definitely a downside of that Rainbow Nyth deck. But, you know, don't worry. I managed to beat a control deck, so I'm happy with that. And I am now at 6 and 3. Yes, 6 and 3 is my score right now. So, moving on up here, trying to get for those 10 and 5... for that 10 and 5 score. And yeah, hopefully we'll meet some humans, and hopefully this is the last control deck we get to see.